Remembrance, one of the main paths of Emphorius and the safety net that has caught us more than once. Because it was this path that started the eternal recurrence. It was this path that saved our life, and it was this path that kept the core flame of world bearing hidden from Lygus, among many other things. So despite this path seeming rather passive, insignificant, or even weak, it is the quiet storm that has never left our side and has always come through to save the day, displaying an aspect of reliability that echoes back to Black Swan's feat of helping us escape Sunday's dream. But where does Evernight fit into this equation? If she is a child of remembrance along with Cyrene, what exactly does this term mean? Well, I think that through some analysis we can get some clues that just might allow us to narrow down some conclusions. Because in the last videos I've talked about Xandar and I am sick of them. So instead of harping on the star of the show, let's talk about our favorite stagehand who delivered the most important prop of all. Because this is the true power of Evernight revealed. And if I sound different in this video, it's because I kinda lost my voice because personal life issues really suck. But the grind never stops. Okay. So before we dive into this confusing world of Fu Li, let's do some reviewing so that we are all on the same page of this Remembrance book. Because Cyrene's condition is something that I didn't really expect. Let me explain. You see, Cyrene is a special being. She was originally a data construct of Emphorius like all of the other Chrysoseirs with the code name Philia 093. But in the event of her dying to create the eternal recurrence, she was also gazed at by Fu Li, which fused her soul into the ceremonial blade and turned her into a mimetic entity, allowing her to reset time endlessly, or rather, her other selves to be able to reset time endlessly. But as she reset time, she would also disappear into hiding, splitting her soul from her consciousness, with the real her only coming together when the eternal recurrence ended. And this combination of her soul and her consciousness is referred to as ripples of past reverie, with the fragment that we're familiar with being Mem, which is her consciousness, and the part of her that is her soul was the first ever Cyrene that we spoke to briefly when she fused back with Mem and created ripples of past reverie. So the person we traveled with in 3.5 is in a way the complete Cyrene now that her consciousness and soul are back together again, which again is the ripples of past reverie, who now only exists inside of our heart. So she is now our memo sprite. She went from a data construct to a mimetic entity to now a memo sprite. And what does that mean? Well, luckily enough, Herta is the character that is responsible for telling us 90% of what we know, and every time she is on screen, she makes it count. And during the screen time, she shows once again that she has mastered the remembrance path to a concerning degree and tells Cyrene that she is a mimetic entity of the remembrance, something that she somehow knew at a glance. And even though she calls herself a memo sprite, she is something way more special. She is a mimetic entity born in a world of memories after all, but what is strange about her is that she only awakened upon our arrival to Emphorius. So I think that this has something to do with us dying when we crash landed. Because something had to turn us into a mimetic entity before we got gazed at by Fu Li and Fu Li solidified our form. But that's besides the point. Point is, Cyrene's existence is entirely bound to our memories, and if we forget about her for even a brief moment, she could simply cease to be. Because the very same thing happened to the original Cyrene as they fused. And this is precisely why this hand-holding scene is so significant. By doing this, she is making an emotional connection she hopes will remain in our minds forever. This is why she tells us to write it down in our hearts and keep it there, because she needs at least this one memory to remain in order for her to survive, and attaching a happy emotion to it will add to how vivid it will become. But she of course didn't do this out of insecurity. She did this because she was going to be implanted into Lygus's mind and give him an aneurysm, something that Sunday helped out with, which I predicted. So we learn a lot about what Cyrene is and how she works. But in comes Evernight, who seems to be something similar but way more powerful. Let me explain. You know how Cyrene's consciousness split from her soul? Well, that seems to be how March got here. Her consciousness left Emphorius long ago and joined the Express crew, but her soul seems to have remained in Emphorius. Because just as Ripples of Past Reverie is the fusing of Cyrene and Mem's memories into one being, Evernight is the complete version of March 7th. But you see, where Cyrene is kinda confused and doesn't exactly understand why and where she remembers some things, Evernight is entirely cognizant of everything from both sides. She understands Emphorius' plight, but also remembers us and everything we know about March 7th, which reveals that she is on a whole nother level of mastery than Cyrene, a much higher level. Because Cyrene views herself as our memo sprite, but Evernight uses multiple memo sprites to do her bidding and calls other memo keepers little gnats. But it doesn't end there, because she demonstrates her dominance by showing that she doesn't need to use trickery to gain our trust. Unlike the little gnats, because obviously those are fake, because the March 7th that they have on screen is, she has her camera, so it's rather obvious. So Evernight utterly flexes on them by showing them that she doesn't need to use such cheap tricks, much like Black Swan. But unlike Black Swan, Evernight has no boundaries at all and just reads our minds whenever she feels like it, and shows us what we need to see and sends us on our way with the core flame that she just got from Cyrene, who she rightfully calls Ripples of Past Reverie. But there is something special about this core flame. She calls this core flame blessed by the Remembrance, which indicates that other than Herta and Skrulin planning to break into Iron Tomb's open vulnerabilities during the reset, the Remembrance will also be influencing this reset more than usual. Also, Evernight makes a connection with us by giving us her name to remember her by, which is just Emphorius' month of March. It's the 3rd month. Very clever, Evernight. Which brings us to her interaction with Danheng, because you see, Danheng tried to trick her by asking her a question that there is no possible way that March 7th would know. A question that Evernight answers correctly. And just in case you are wondering, she's right. For some reason, right before Danheng splits the waters, you can talk to everyone as NPCs, but the Trailblazer doesn't speak for some odd reason. But that aside, this reveals that Evernight has such a high mastery over memories that she can pull from March 7th's unconscious memories as well as her conscious ones. Meaning that everything March has ever sensed, Evernight knows. There is no such thing as forgetting or not noticing with her. And March's entire history of experiences are at Evernight's fingertips, which combined with her calling memo keepers little gnats, leads me to think once again that she is something way more powerful than a memo keeper. Like a Remembrance Emanator, or simply something more extreme than a memo keeper, like a Cremator. But let's start with Remembrance Emanators, because who doesn't love Emanators, right? Because we don't know exactly what a Remembrance Emanator is capable of, but since we have seen Acheron, Herta, and Xandar in action, we can assume that she is a memo keeper turned up to 100 or even 1000. And we already know that Black Swan is capable of turning invisible, reading minds, becoming imperceptible, and just passing through objects due to not having a physical body. We also know that memo keepers can delete memories from people's heads, but that is also against the rules, of course. And we have never seen a memo keeper wielding a memo sprite, or else Black Swan would kinda have one. So at the bare minimum, a Remembrance Emanator should be everything a memo keeper is and more, meaning control over any and all memories with an army of memo sprites all capable of doing what Cyrene is currently doing to Lygus. And I haven't even touched on the time aspect of Remembrance power, because Evernight has shown to be able to access the Exomyth, which is in a state of time dilation, Emphorius, and the Aeon Observatory. That's what I call this place. Not to mention, she found the core flame that Cyrene sent along the stream of time, that not even Xandar could find. But Evernight had it, and it didn't look like she had to try very hard. So she seems to be able to sit outside of time and access all points of time whenever she feels like it. Oh, and she also went to the fake vortex to keep Danheng company. So she is very strong, and her control over time is something we have never seen before, which is quite possibly the power of a Remembrance Emanator. But this isn't all she could be, because I've heard someone propose a theory in my comments long ago, and it has only become more plausible, because this faction might just be what we need to stop Iron Tomb and maybe even Xandar as well. Because Cremators are the ones who till the Garden of Recollection, deleting memories that are unneeded. And there is no memory more unneeded than Iron Tomb's destruction equation. And with the geniuses opening up Iron Tomb from the inside and Lygus confined to the exomyth, this may lead to an opening for Evernight to erase Iron Tomb's progress once and for all. Because Memo Keepers view all memories as precious building blocks for recreating a universe. We finally got that confirmed this patch, which is good because I've been saying it for like 8 months now, and I would hate for you guys to keep calling me Enigmata, but Cremators filter the memories that the Garden of Recollection Memo Keepers actually collect, which causes them to be vilified and called extremists by the Memo Keepers, but they themselves see their work as the sacred duty of cleaning out the garbage polluting the Garden of Recollection. So I guess you can see how these two factions are at odds philosophy-wise while still being on the same team. Are the Memo Keepers painting the Cremators in a bad light? We have yet to see, but I know that we need their help now, because it is all hands on deck, and we just discovered a new ally to our cause. A strong ally with the potential to turn this entire story on its head, and her name is Evernight, the third month of Amphorius, joining the fray with her army of Memo Sprite jellyfish with such a mastery over time and remembrance that Lygus hasn't detected her after 2 different interventions. Evernight is a threat, and I am so hyped to see what role she takes in the future, because this is the true power of Evernight revealed. I am wondering how this is gonna go in the future. The March we know can't just be gone for good. Is she gonna transform back? Because I like Evernight, but I like March too. I hope this ends up being like an Imbibe or Lune situation, but Evernight's personality is so different. She's a totally different character now. Either way, I think Evernight is miles ahead of the average Memo Keeper, and Memo Keepers like Black Swan are nothing to mess with. Through Evernight and this entire questline, I am realizing just how strong the Remembrance path is. I mean, sure, they take L's to mimetic viruses and the Nihility as a whole, but when put into dire straits and rules don't matter, we learn that they've been holding out on us. And I have got a sinking feeling that Evernight is going to bring the house down. And I would love nothing more than for March, the little sister of the team, to get a moment to be the hero. But what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace, y'all.